recently I had Mark Lamont Hill.
From Philadelphia
here.
as myself.
And he mentioned something that was kind of interesting. He said that after the Emancipation Proclamation, slavery was outlawed except for in prison.
Yes.
And right after that, we had just reported that there was a nationwide prison protest against prison labor, where, and I talked to a couple of people that had been to prison who had been there for a number of years, and they were saying how they get like 17 cents an hour working, how like after 3 years they made like $340 or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, how do you feel about that?
First of all, he's absolutely correct. The 13th Amendment outlawed slavery by the individual, but then it inlawed slavery by the state. And it validated reincarceration through mass incarceration. So what they did was they said, okay, we got 4 million blacks who are about to be free. 4 million. Jobless. We freed them, but we gave them no opportunity, which means they still dependent on us to just transform the system. So, and we're not going to give them a job. That means these black men and women have to do what? They have to break the law to feed their family. So what they did to create this mass incarceration system, which was designed to do what? Remove blacks from the functioning society. Get them out the way. So they don't threaten anything we're trying to do. So what did they do? They upgraded petty crimes and made them felonies. If you didn't have a job, you go to jail. If you didn't have a home, you go to jail. You out past curfew, you go to jail. You don't have ID, you go to jail. I mean, any little petty offense could put you in prison for years. This was done intentionally. Why? Because the former plantation owners needed workers and they didn't want to pay for them. So what's the cheapest form of labor? Mass incarcerate the ex-slave and then force him out, hire him out, contract him out onto the chain gang. Same thing they're doing today. You see, this was done by design. At the end of the Civil War, there was no large-scale federal prison system. You didn't have the sophisticated statewide prison networks you have today. That came post 13th Amendment, post 1865, to make sure we had a Negro removal program that took ex-slaves out of society and put them back on the chain gangs. And you still have chain gangs today. Angola prison down in Louisiana, I believe it is. They still have brothers out picking cotton and other crops with a white man on horseback with a rifle. No different than an overseer 150 years ago. And someone just sent me live pictures from it. Looks just like a scene from the 1760s, but it was in 2015. So slavery hasn't went anywhere. Okay. And all of this, again, was by design. Okay. The black man is not born a criminal. The black man is made a criminal. Ironically, who sold the drugs in America back in the 1920s? Who ran the gangs in America back in the 1920s? Who sold the dope and ran the booze? Irish gangsters, Jewish gangsters, Italian gangsters. Why did they do it? Because they were not considered white people until 1940. So they broke the rules to feed their family. But nobody said they was born to be criminals. But all of a sudden, 1940 comes, they're upgraded to white status. So we're going to give the Irish the police department and the Italians the fire department and the European Jews the civil service jobs in every major city's government, which they still own and control to this day. And all we're going to do is push the black males into the criminal underworld that was formerly occupied by the European gangs. Criminals are made.
Well, it's interesting because when we put this article up, this huge debate just broke out where it's like, well, they're criminals, they deserve to, to be there and they deserve to have to do this labor. And it's like, well, they're already in prison. You're already being punished by being put in a cage. And as someone, I've never done any real jail time, but I did a weekend here and there for, just petty stuff. So being in a cage is a pretty severe punishment in and of itself. But as an employer, I really don't understand why I have to pay my employees a certain amount of money based on their skills, whereas a prison could just put all these men to work, profit from it, and only pay them 17 cents an hour. Like, why not, for example, pay them a proper wage, but a certain percentage of the wage goes to the victims? That's something that I'd be completely for.
But here's the thing. Most of them are not in prison for violent crime. Most black men in jail in America are in prison for non-violent, drug-related offenses. Most of them are not. Most criminals are not there for violent crimes. And crime is a function of the state. Whatever behavior the state considers to be a threat to its monopoly of domination is automatically criminalized. What's going on in America now? The decriminalization of marijuana. But I haven't heard no person yet argue that reparations is owed to all Americans alive or their descendants if they're no longer alive, if they were formerly incarcerated for marijuana use. How can marijuana be acceptable all of a sudden? But you've put thousands of people in jail for smoking it, possession, distribution, and now it's legal. Same thing with alcohol during the prohibition. It'll send you to jail then, but it's legal today. So is crime really about what's right and wrong? That's the question. Is crime about what is right or what is wrong? Or is crime simply the mask that we use to hide the government's agenda to get rid of certain populations?
Yeah, no, I feel you. What's your take on Kaepernick and
I love it. Shout out
the
to
whole
Kaepernick.
situation with athletes protesting?
I love what he did, but it would have been so much stronger if the whole team would have done it. We haven't had a major black athlete take a stand like that since the brothers put the fist up at the Olympics, since the days of Muhammad Ali. You don't see that type of bold, unapologetic, alpha male black man behavior from our athletes. Most of them, as physically imposing as they are extremely docile. Michael Jordan, for example. Michael Jordan, when young brothers was killing each other in the streets over Michael Jordan sneakers, he didn't say a word. Michael Jordan was the prototype of the modern day athlete. He was Joe Louis on steroids. I'm not going to say nothing. I'm going to keep my mouth shut. I have no social responsibility to people who look like me whatsoever. And then to prove y'all I don't have no social responsibility to people who look like me, once I divorced my first wife who was black, I'm going to marry a young white one. So you can clearly see what Michael Jordan's mindset is. But what Colin did was right. It was powerful. I stand by him. I can't wait to get one of his jerseys. He may suffer because of it. But his self-respect and the respect he's going to get from a lot of us on the bottom is going to go through the roof because he took a stand. I didn't stand up for the Star Spangled Banner. Do you know what that flag represents to black people? Would you ever ask a European Jew to stand up for the singing of the Nazi national anthem? So if a European Jew don't have to stand for Hitler's anthem, no black person should have to stand for the national anthem or the Star Spangled Banner. When I went to Scotland School, which was a preparatory military academy, they wanted to throw me out because I didn't pledge the flag. But when they contacted the state said that the federal courts have already decided on this. You cannot make a child say the Pledge of Allegiance in school. So they wanted to throw me out, but they could not do that. So I appreciate what he did. But here's the thing that needs to be understood. All progress and all change is made in a group. The individuals might spark the change, but it is the group that ultimately realizes it. What if all black athletes did that? That's what we need. We need mass direct action. Dr. King, Marcus Garvey, mass direct action. What he did was right, but it would have been better if the other brothers would have stood with him.
Well, you are seeing more athletes now. Like there's been more and more athletes who are not standing, that are raising their fists and so forth. One of the things that just happened though was the Seattle Seahawks announced that they would stand with their arms interlocked during the national anthem. Right. And one of a woman who had been on our show recently, Miko Grimes, who's the wife of an NFL player, she called them a bunch of pussies for doing that.
The players.
Called the players. Called the whole team.
Is she black or white? What, is she black or white?
She's black.
She's black. Well, and I don't know the sister, but for her to chastise brothers who take a stand against white supremacy means she's an agent of that white supremacy. See, one thing you got to understand about slavery.
She's criticizing them because as opposed to not standing, they're all standing but with their arms interlocked.
Oh, as opposed to taking the seat. Right. I understand. Here's what I would say to that. I understand where she's coming from. Yeah. But something is better than nothing. Something is better than nothing. You got to start somewhere. Anytime an athlete shows any type of social consciousness towards their people, I have to commend them. They might not have the courage of a Kaepernick. They might not have the political influence either because he's a superstar. You understand? Some of these brothers who interlock their arms, they might not be a superstar. Colin Kaepernick is pretty much indispensable, so to speak. He's one of the top 25 athletes, in the world, I would say. So he has some leverage. LeBron, if he did something like that, he could do that. LeBron is indispensable to the NBA's pocketbook. Okay, Colin Kaepernick is indispensable to the 49ers pocketbook, but some of these other guys may not be. So we have to make sure we're not too quick to judge, because when you criticize and attempt to do something right, then you reduce the likelihood that they will ever try anything again. It's like when people ask me about the Black Lives Matter movement, say, they running around and they disrupting political meetings. I might not agree with everything they do, but I can respect that they're trying to do something. I might not agree with it, but because the effort is there to make a difference, I got to respect it. I'm not going to sit there and criticize every little thing and why they didn't do it this way. They are trying. And it's been 50 years since we've seen black college students get involved in any serious social protest. The last time we seen this was the sit-ins, the freedom rides, Stokely Carmichael, H. Rap Brown. We haven't seen the level of social consciousness on the university campus that we see today. So I have to respect it and withhold the criticism.
Well, what's interesting about the Kaepernick situation, and we had posted a story about this also. There was a story written on the Bleacher Report where it was anonymous sources, but they had spoken to a bunch of the executives in the front office of the 49ers. And they basically, their take was, fuck this guy, he'll never work again, his career is over, and so forth. And there was an interview recently with Harry Belafonte where they brought that to his attention. And what he said was kind of interesting. He said that to mute the slave is always the goal of the slave owner.
Oh, without question, because revolution is contagious. The 99th monkey experiment. It only takes 1% of a population committed to what they're trying to do to influence the other 99%. And they understand. You have to realize the American sports enterprise, which is one of its top exports, black music is America's second largest export. Black music and black athletics is at the foundation of American corporate power. So they have to be very careful about how they let athletes and entertainers express themselves, because they could trigger rebel. If Jay-Z wanted to, he could probably do more today than a Dr. King and a Malcolm did 40 years ago. Why? Because he has the position, the influence, and most of all the money. Malcolm had to get his money. King had to get his money. The Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey had to get his money. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad had to get his money. Jay got his money. If him and Beyonce wanted to, they could start a revolution. The question becomes, and I'm not singling them out, I'm just bringing them up because they're prominent. Any name could be used in their place. Are you willing to pay the sacrifice that must be paid in order to push Black America forward? Anyone who has helped push us forward had to pay a sacrifice, whether it was jail, whether it was reputation, whether it was employment, whether it was their lives. But freedom is not free. It cannot be voted away. It cannot be prayed away. It cannot be negotiated away. Okay? It has to be fought. And not just physically. Economics is a form of war. Propaganda is a form of war. Finance is a form of war. But many of our athletes and entertainers are so comfortable, they're not willing to risk that. See, 50 years ago, the athletes and entertainers didn't live much better than the regular black folks. They had a status that was great, but they didn't have the financial elitism of today. Today's black athlete and entertainer has millions of dollars that many of them don't want to liquidate. It's like when people ask me, why haven't I been on Oprah Winfrey's show yet? You're the top black school psychologist in America, hands down. Okay? You've never been on Oprah Winfrey's show, but she made Dr. Phil a millionaire. She's not going to bring me on her show because Oprah Winfrey, and I'm not attacking her, I actually applaud her success, but she made her success by pleasing and accommodating white females. That's her predominantly viewing audience. She's not going to bring Dr. Umar Johnson on her couch so I can say publicly that the reason black boys are not learning in school is because middle-class white female teachers are racist and don't care about their best interests. She don't want me saying that on the show. Okay? People are afraid of the truth. and they will muffle it. That's why whenever there's conversations about Black America, who do you see? No disrespect to none of them, by the way. Mark Lamont Hill, Tavis Smiley, Cornel West. Why Dr. Umar Johnson not in those conversations? Especially when you're dealing with mental health and education. My expertise far exceeds any of them in those areas. But you don't get me there. You know why? Because they know that their responses are going to be somewhat tempered. My response is going to be the brutal truth. It won't be disrespectful, but it will be honest. You can't put me on CNN with Anderson Cooper and tell it like it is, because it'll wake Black folks up. So they know who to use and who to not use. The Black bourgeoisie has been meticulously created by the power structure to control Black advancement.